Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about which sea service is the best for lawyers. Spoiler alert, the answer is the Marine Corps, but I'm a little bit biased. This video is dedicated to Pintac Gualotunya. Thank you for your message on LinkedIn. And guys, if you have any questions that you want me to answer here on YouTube, feel free to drop me a comment or hit me up on any of the social medias because they're all in my YouTube channel, and I will try my best to make a video answering your question. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the JAG Corps in particular, or if you're in the Marine Corps, just JAG, because we don't actually have a corps. We're going to start by talking about the Navy, and then we're going to go talk about the Coast Guard and end with the Marine Corps. Now I want to start by saying that all military service is honorable, and I truly believe this. I think that if you are going to spend 4, 8, 20 years in the military, it doesn't matter, especially if you have a professional degree. There's no better way that you can go serve your country, and that all service into your country is valuable. But we're going to do a little pros and cons for each of the sea service, and I have to start by saying that what is a pro to me and a con to me may not be a pro to you or con to you. So listen very carefully, and I'm just going to be giving you guys my opinion. I think it goes without saying that this is not the opinion of the DOD, but for some reason, everyone likes to think that you should say something like that in these videos. So, all right, I have some notes, so if I'm looking down, that's why, but we're gonna start with the Navy. We're gonna go pros, then cons, starting with the pros. One of the pros of the Navy is that you have a shorter pipeline. To get to Naval Justice School, you just do, I think it's a 5-6 week officer development school course. You start as an officer, as a JAG in the Navy. So you don't have to go to officer candidate school, you go to officer development school. So by the time you are joining the Navy, you're already a sir or a ma'am. Another pro for the Navy is that they have bonuses. They have sign-on bonuses sometimes, I believe. They at least did whenever I was going through this process, and I don't know if that's something they'll have by the time you're going through this process, but they do offer bonuses to sign on to the Navy. Another pro is the Navy white uniform. I think this is arguably the first or second nicest looking uniform in the military. It's the all whites, the summer whites. It just looks super crisp, super clean. And if you've seen the movie A Few Good Men, or you've just lived life, you probably know the uniform I'm talking about. Another pro for the Navy is that they have more duty stations than the Marines and the Coast Guard. They are all up and down the eastern and western seaboard, so you have more locations to choose from if you go into the Navy. Another thing I really like about the Navy is that on your first tour as a Navy JAG, you'll have a diverse experience in terms of what you will do legally. I believe every first tour JAG dabbles in each of the 3 areas of military law, so civilian law, military justice, and staff judge advocacy. So you'll have an opportunity, I believe, as a Navy JAG to touch every bit of the military legal system. If you're interested in staff judge advocacy, and you can really think about staff judge advocacy as operational law or law of war, the Navy has the most staff judge advocacy billets of the 3 branches of sea services. So if that's something you're really interested in, you want to do operational law, the Navy is probably your best choice for getting to that destination the quickest. The Navy also has more money. You know, the Marine Corps is underneath the Navy, and if you just look at the annual budget of the Navy compared to the Coast Guard and the Marine Corps, they have a bigger budget. So they tend to have nicer facilities, nicer gym facilities, nicer buildings, and that's the reason why they're able to give bonuses, because they have more money to throw around. Obviously, if you're in the Navy, they are a forward deployed sea service, so you will have a lot of opportunities to get aboard a ship. I think you have more opportunities in the Navy than you do in the Marine Corps to get afloat, get underway, get on a ship if that's something you're really interested in. When you join the Navy, fresh out of law school, you're going to start as an O2, a lieutenant junior grade. So this is higher than what you're going to start off in the Marine Corps, but lower than what you're going to start off in the Coast Guard. It appears to me that the Navy also has faster promotions. I don't know if this is really true, but when I just kind of look and I see, you know, someone who's in the Marine Corps for 8 or 9 years versus someone who is in the Navy for 8 or 9 years, it seems like the Navy is promoting a little bit quicker than the Marine Corps. I can't really speak for the Coast Guard. Because the Navy is bigger, you're going to have more opportunities to specialize in the area of law that you want to. So if you are really interested in military justice, there's going to be more opportunity for you to specialize in that thing. If you're really interested in civilian law, again, more opportunities for you to specialize in that thing. So if you know there's a certain area of law that you want to practice in, I think the Navy gives you more flexibility to make sure you're able to do that thing. Now we're going to move into some of the cons of the Navy. The biggest con of being a JAG in the Navy is that you're joining the JAG Corps, which means you are a restricted officer. This means that you cannot actually take command as a Navy JAG, but if you're a lawyer, you probably won't be taking command in any of the other branches as well, but it's still kind of like a bragging rights thing. In my opinion, the Navy has the worst uniforms. I hate their utility uniforms. I don't think they look good. I'm also not a big fan of their dress uniform, other than the dress white uniform. The other Navy uniforms, I think, just don't look as nice as the Coast Guard and the Marine Corps. If you join the Navy, you're not going to get any background in infantry tactics or just like infantry training at all. So I think this is a con. The Navy also doesn't emphasize physical fitness as much as the Marine Corps, and I think this is a con. Another con is that you have to call yourself a sailor as opposed to calling yourself a Marine. Obviously I'm biased, but I think everyone knows that Marines are the best. I say that in jest, and Marine sounds a lot cooler than sailor. The last con about the Navy is that, in my opinion, they have a culture that is unique and a lot different than the Marines. I would say it's not as cultish, if you will, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing for you, but for someone like myself, I really like that about the Marine Corps and the Coast Guard. I think they have a little bit more of a unique culture compared to the Navy. All right, moving on to the Coast Guard. Now, the Coast Guard is the branch of service that I knew the least amount about before coming to NJS. I didn't know anyone in my life growing up as an Air Force brat that was a Coast Guardsman or Coastie, whatever you want to call them. And I really like the Coast Guard. That's been one of my favorite parts about being at NJS, is getting to meet people from other branches of service. Everyone I've met from the Coast Guard is super cool, super chill, like from commanders all the way down to lieutenants, because the lowest grade of Coastie that you will meet in the JAG Corps is a 03 lieutenant, which obviously it's different in the Marine Corps. I'm a second lieutenant and I'm an 01, so a little bit different naming system. But let's get into the pros. The pros of the Coast Guard is that you are an unrestricted officer, similar to the Marine Corps. You also start off with a higher salary. You're going to go into the Coast Guard as an 03, and I don't know if they have any bonuses or not, but they maybe do. But regardless, you're starting off with a salary of 6 figures when you join the Coast Guard. If you are someone who enjoys being by the ocean, the Coast Guard's perfect for you because all of their duty stations are located by the ocean. My favorite thing about the Coast Guard is I found out how much military justice they do, because the Coast Guard does no civil law. They have civilians that they contract with to do all the civil law stuff, or they go to the Navy whenever they need civil law help. So a lot of the billets in the Coast Guard are either military justice or staff judge advocacy. And that's another thing I really liked. I know someone who's going into their first tour as a Coastie, and they're immediately going to go to a staff judge advocate billet doing cyber law. I don't think this is possible in the Marine Corps or the Navy, and not saying that that's an easy thing to do or a common thing to do, but it has been done, and I think that's really cool and a pro for the Coast Guard. I've already talked about the people. Super chill, super cool, very friendly, easy to get along with. I think the Coast Guard has one of the most welcoming and down-to-earth communities of all the sea services. They also have a super cool mission. Like, I didn't realize how much action the Coast Guard actually gets, but they are out there in the ocean doing the thing. They are doing the operations. They are the law enforcement arm of, you know, the United States at sea. And so if there's drug smugglers, if there's, I don't know, what other human trafficking, smugglers, whatever crazy stuff goes on in the ocean, because those activities aren't like war activities, it's the Coast Guard that's going in and doing those missions. So they actually get a lot of action out at sea, which obviously means they have a high need for legal advice in terms of staff judge advocacy and law of war and international law. So just a lot of really cool missions and a really cool purpose. Moving on to the cons of the Coast Guard. I think the biggest con is their duty stations are really small. They are part of the Department of Homeland Security and not the Department of Defense. I don't know how their budget compares to the Navy and the Marine Corps, but I'm going to assume that it's higher than the Marine Corps and smaller than the Navy. But all of their duty stations are extremely small. So this means that there's not going to be a lot of people at your duty station, and I think that's a con. Another con is they also don't practice any civil law. If you're going into the military as a lawyer, I think one of the cool parts about being in the military as a lawyer is you get to practice in a lot of different areas of law. But in the Coast Guard, you are really limited to military justice and staff judge advocacy / operational law. I really am not a huge fan of the blue utility uniform that the Coast Guard uses. So I consider this a con. And similar to the Navy, the Coast Guard does not go to officer candidate school, they go to officer development school. So you are already starting off as a sir or a ma'am. For some people that might be a pro, but for me that's a con, because one thing I really liked about the Marine Corps is that you had to earn the title of being a Marine. Moving on to the Marine Corps. Now, obviously I'm biased because I am a Marine, but I do think that the Marine Corps is the best of the sea services for me. That doesn't mean it's the best for you. So take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. But the best part about being in the Marine Corps is that you get to call yourself a Marine. And as I've already talked about, you have to earn that title. So that means you go to officer candidate school as opposed to officer development school, and you have to go through the 10 weeks, earn your title to become a Marine. For some people, that's a con because there's a lot of risk in going to OCS. You risk not making it as a Marine officer, and so you might put in a lot of time to try to become a Marine just to be disappointed, but I liked that. I also like the fact that in the Marine Corps, you are a Marine first, lawyer second. So as a Marine officer, you are expected to be a provisional platoon rifle commander. And in order to become that, you must go to TBS and get 6 to 7 months of infantry training. As a lawyer, that really attracted me to the Marine Corps because I wanted to do something that was different, and the Marine Corps offered me that opportunity to not just be in an office, but actually get out there into the field and do the military thing, which if you want to join the military, I think that there's a piece of you that wants to do the military thing. The Marine Corps also has the best uniforms. This goes without saying. I think our utilities are the best uniform, and obviously our dress blues are the most iconic uniform, and I think it's a really big point of pride as a Marine to be able to wear that uniform. The Marine Corps also has the highest PT standards. They also have the highest standards in terms of height and weight. And this really attracted me to the Marine Corps because they don't just want you to be a lawyer, they want you to be that Marine that you're supposed to be, and they encourage you to be physically fit. You will do PT, you will train, you will do the combat fitness test once a year, you will do the PFT once a year, and so I really like that about the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps also has the best culture of all the branches of sea service, and in my opinion, of all the branches of the armed forces. The Marines are a cult, for lack of a better word, but really what I mean is that when you become a Marine, you have a shared experience with all other Marines, and you really are joining a brotherhood or a sisterhood, just a family, and you really get to be inbred with that warrior mindset and that warrior ethos that really pervades the Marine Corps culture. When you earn that EGA, it will be one of the best days of your life. I know that sounds super hyperbolic, but it's the truth. The Marine Corps has the best culture. That's why you always can tell a Marine, even when they have left the Marine Corps, They wear the Marine Corps logo. They are gung-ho about the Marine Corps. They have the Marine Corps logo on their car. You know they're a Marine without them telling you they are a Marine because they love the Marine Corps. You're also going to get really cool opportunities in the Marine Corps. I think that some of the staff judge advocacy billets in the Marine Corps are going to be more unique because the Marines are the first to fight, and they have more, the MAGTF is all encompassing in terms of the capabilities it brings to the fight as opposed to the Navy and the Coast Guard. So you're just going to be able to advise on cooler things, but I think that that comes at the cost of you have to actually do your time in the Marine Corps to get to those billets. So there's not as many staff judge advocacy billets, operational law billets in the Marine Corps from what I can tell. I could be wrong, but that's just kind of what I've seen. But you're also going to be able to just live the life of a Marine in terms of doing MCMAP, PTing. For those of you who don't know, MCMAP is the Marine Corps Mixed Martial Arts Program. You're going to be able to belt up, you know, just really, as I've already said, become that warrior that many of us are striving to be. The culture of the Marine Corps is one of policing its own. And I can really see this play out here at Naval Justice School. Like, I think the Marines tend to be a little bit more disciplined in terms of holding each other accountable and proper military like bearing and discipline and what's expected of you as a officer. But it's also probably because compared to the other branches, the Marines are coming in with the most military training. Like, as a Marine JAG, you've already probably been in the Marine Corps for 7 to 8 months. And in the Navy and the Coast Guard, you've probably only been in for about 2 months. So now moving on to the cons of the Marine Corps. Yes, I am able to look at the Marine Corps and talk about some of the bad things as much as I love the Marine Corps. One of the cons of the Marine Corps is that your first duty station and billet is very much based on the needs of the Marine Corps compared to some of the other branches of service. So you are going to at some point do trial work in your first tour in the Marine Corps. You just may not start with trial work. And for me, that is a con. As I've already said, there's not as many staff judge advocacy positions in the Marine Corps. And another con in the Marine Corps is you start as an 01. In the Coast Guard, you start off as an 03. In the Navy, you start off as an 02. So most of the second lieutenants who are here, although we've been in the military for longer than the Coast Guard and the Navy, we are the lowest in rank compared to our other sea service peers. The Marine Corps also doesn't have as many duty stations. The facilities in the Marine Corps compared to that in the Navy are not as good. Like, the Navy gyms are really nice from what I have seen, and the Marine Corps, at least at Quantico, like, the facilities are not as good as I've experienced here at Naval Station Newport. The last con about the Marine Corps is that it seems like the Marine Corps is the slowest branch to promote. The Marine Corps is also one of the hardest branches to earn medals and ribbons in. And when I look at the 03 in the Navy versus the 03 in the Marine, the 03 in the Navy will have more medals and ribbons on average than the 03 in the Marine Corps. And so, you know, if that's your thing, you want to have a lot of medals and ribbons, then the Marine Corps, you're not going to get as many, and so that could be a con. As I said in the beginning of this video, guys, you know, obviously I'm biased, but truthfully, my time at Naval Justice School has taught me that all the branches are different. They all have their own pros, they all have their own cons, and truthfully, all service is honorable, and so you can't go wrong no matter what you choose. You know, even our Air Force and Army peers, it doesn't matter which branch of service you choose. Oh, Space Force, just going out there, being willing to put on the uniform already separates you from everyone else, and it's something that you should, you know, you should be proud of no matter what branch you go into. And so this is just for entertainment. Obviously, doesn't represent the views of the Department of Defense or Department of Homeland Security in the case of the Coast Guard. But if you guys like this sort of video, have any thoughts, comments, please drop them below. Like, subscribe, share, all that good trash. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.